Chris, what is our fourth main topic today?
This one comes from Venmar. I'm completely floored. Every time I sit down to watch The Last of Us, it gives me a completely different experience, and tonight was no different. Even though the first two episodes did a lot of stuff that is very faithful to the game, it was tonight's episode that I really felt it. The bond between Joel and Ellie is the Last of Us. That's the whole game. Zombies, hunters, fireflies, none of it's the actual game. Joel and Ellie are. And this was the first episode that made me feel like I was right there in that world because of it. What did you guys think?
All right, Venmar, thanks a lot for saying that in. And just a quick reminder, we are not going to talk spoilers on Last of Us episode last night, but we will talk about it in some generalities here. If you want to hear us talk in a full, open, spoiler-filled environment, again, come back and join us later today on the channel at 3 p.m. Los Angeles time. That's 6 p.m. Eastern time for our Last of Us open spoiler discussion. Once again, that will be at 3 p.m. We hope to see you there. That said, The Last of Us episode 4 had a very daunting task in front of it because it was coming off of one of the arguably greatest episodes of television I've seen in years, with episode 3, what I call the Ron Swanson episode. It was, and don't lie, I saw a lot of YouTube videos this week, man, of Ron Swanson preparing for the apocalypse in Last of Us and doing a bunch of clips from Parks and Rec about how he was clearly preparing for the apocalypse coming in Last of Us anyway. So it already had a very, very tall order. And what Venmar just said, who was it? Venmar. What Venmar just said is absolutely 100% exactly what I was thinking when I was watching it. You know, last week in episode 3, when the story was on Joel and Ellie, you started to see the beginning of them even figuring out what their relationship is, right? Not a lot of endearment, but they were starting to lay that foundation. I mentioned that in our open spoiler discussion, that was part of it. But this is why I think that while this is not the best episode of the season so far, why I believe this was the most important episode of the season so far is because of exactly what Venmar just said. This was the episode that we started to see Joel and Ellie and that relationship and that bond and the dynamic, and you see the beginnings of affection growing between them. And you're absolutely right. At the heart of it, that's what The Last of Us is, at least the first game. That's what it is. The clickers, the hunters, Fedra, cordyceps virus, all these things are context and background. Really, it's a story about a pseudo father and daughter. And if The Last of Us is going to work to that next level, like beyond just, cool, it's another Walking Dead show, another apocalypse, or zombies and clickers and all this kind of stuff out there. If this show is truly going to work on like an Emmy level, this is a show we're going to be talking about for years and years and years, then it becomes absolutely essential that we buy into Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal and their on-screen chemistry and their dynamic, and we've got to buy in to Joel and Ellie. We've bought into Joel easily in the first couple of episodes. I think we have easily bought into Ellie, easily. But can these two create an on-screen chemistry that has us buying into Joel and Ellie as this pseudo father and daughter relationship that becomes incredibly emotionally grounding and becomes the fuel, if you will, of the engine that moves this whole story along? And I think last night was the episode that we got to sit up and go, damn, they did it. Damn, they did it. I love everything about that episode, just when it's the two of them talking, whether it was in a lighthearted moment, a dead serious moment, whichever it was, I was buying into, you could almost physically see the bonds between them connecting. And I absolutely adored it. And again, and then they set up a world. I mean, they changed it a little bit. By the way, this scene is right out of the video game. Like it's a word for word move over from the video game into the show, which was pretty freaking awesome. I love that. But they changed something, like it's not Pittsburgh anymore. Now it's Kansas. And they're taking characters like NPCs and making them more fleshed out, which is what you got to do in adaptation. By the way, the guy who did the original game's voice of Tommy, Joel's brother, he actually has a pretty significant role in the series now that we see. Anyway, not the best episode of the season so far. That was episode 3. But I think fundamentally the most important one we've had, because it showed us that the most key element of this show working, they got it. They got it. And because of that, I think it's the most important episode we've had so far. Anyway, Rob, you had a chance to check out the episode. What did you feel about it?
Well, I felt just like you did. I mean, I really liked they spent time. It wasn't rushed.
Yeah.
You know, and we got to see them deal with multiple subject matter, and Joel could speak with Ellie, and they really were getting to know one another, and you could see that this kind of bond is the show. Like you said, it is what The Last of Us is. And I also felt like, even though again, it shows how this episode, how adaptation is enriching the TV show, because the gameplay of this was a lot of it. There's the people you're fighting. Okay, they're rando human villains, you know, bad people. Now there's this really interesting dynamic going on where, you know, Melanie Linsky's character is like a new character. Like, that's interesting. And suddenly they're giving us the game and what people know, but with all of these episodes, including this episode, the adaptation is giving us more. And I'm there for it. I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. So if you've played the game and it's something you know back and forth, watching this show, I have to believe, because I haven't heard from that many gamers, but it's got to be enriching the experience. Like there's 2 different Last of Us now. There's the series and there's the game, and both, they sort of complement each other in a way. And I think that's really neat. And it shows how much time Druckmann and Craig Mazin, because again, Mazin wrote this episode, have spent developing the show. And I really feel that this show has been very carefully constructed and beautifully written.
Chris, you had a chance to see the episode last. By the way, I mean, without giving away spoilers or whatever, I'm like, who is, oh my God, that's the girl from the Savage
from Yellow Jackets.
Yellow Jackets. That's the girl from Yellow Jackets,
and from Peter Jackson's Heavenly Creatures.
Yeah. Anyway, what did you think about last night's episode?
Oh, it was great, and I really think that dynamic is what's so important. And to Rob's point too, when you are playing the game, you play so often as these characters, and that's one of the things that helps ingratiate them to you, because you experience everything as them, right? You're the one giving them agency. This is all happening to you in a way, so that it makes you really, really care about these folks. So you have to do a little bit more when it comes to this kind of narrative to really make sure that your audience connects with people. And they do such a good job. I was so proud of myself. I synced up with what she was saying in the car too, because it's one of my favorite parts in the game. I love that whole bit. And I was so excited. We talked about it last week in our open spoiler discussion. A thing that I was hoping they would bring in came true. I'm really excited to talk about this on the spoiler section. It's going to be fun.
Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun talking about this. And by the way, we knew going into The Last of Us what Pedro Pascal brings to the table, right? We already know he's a world-class actor. That we already know. And by the way, if you didn't see him on Saturday Night Live this weekend, he was pretty great on Saturday Night Live. It's a me, Mario. You should check that out. I knew Bella Ramsey just from watching her on Game of Thrones. I knew she was good. She is showing me things I didn't know she was capable of. And this, I mean, there are scenes in this, again, we won't go into any specifics, where she and her character needs to transfer almost instantly from appearing one way on the surface, ducking around a corner where she's alone, and suddenly it all changes. She is, damn, again, I often talk in terms of if acting ability and talent were mutant powers, she's a fucking powerful mutant. Like, she's showing it all more and more every single week. This girl's phenomenal. I can't wait to see more for her. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What did you think about last night's episode of The Last of Us, episode 4? Again, make sure you come back and join us at 3 p.m. today when we talk about an open spoiler discussion. But just in general, how did you feel about it? Whatever your thoughts are, jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, DraftKings. Are you ready for the biggest Sunday in sports? DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl LVII, has all the Super Bowl action you need. New customers can bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, all customers can get in on the Super Bowl LVII excitement with DraftKings Happy Hour Super Boosts.
Check the DraftKings Sportsbook app every day between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to see what prop bet will be boosted. Going into Super Bowl 57, I think you got to look at the Philadelphia Eagles as taking home the big prize. Keep your eye on Jalen Hurts. He's going to be the difference maker in the game. So guys, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code Campea. New customers can bet $5 on Super Bowl 57 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with the code Campea. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.